Welcome to the next episode of the Existential Files. Hello, Louie.
Hello, Matthew.
And again, we are joined by a very special guest, Hayley Stevens. Hayley, you there?
Hello. Yep, I'm here.
So we're just going to pick up a conversation which we started in the previous episode, or an earlier episode. Not sure how Louie will put these together.
Yeah.
But you mentioned as part of your general introduction, we talked about the ghost hunting and paranormal investigation related to this idea of ghosts. I think you mentioned somewhere there, maybe monster hunting, monsters?
Yeah, I did, yes.
So say a little more about that. So what kind of monsters are we talking about here?
Just monsters in general, really. Everything from, when I was a child, I had an ABC experience with, which is an alien big cat. For those who don't know, which isn't a big cat that's an alien. It's a big cat that's in a place it shouldn't be.
It's not the zoo or anything.
Well, you could argue that cats in the zoo are ABCs.
I mean, you didn't see your cat in the zoo, and that's
no.
Right? Okay.
No.
I'm thinking of things like the Beast of Bodmin Moor.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what was your experience?
I saw the Beast of Trowbridge, and I was with, I know it's really like a C-class celebrity when it comes to the big cats. We were very young children and grew up in the village of Hilperton, which is outside the town of Trowbridge, which is the county town of Wiltshire. And Trowbridge has had a big cat or big cats for a long time now. And we're in this field playing because it's, the countryside and everything. We're in this tree that we've kind of commandeered as our den, and we're all up the tree. And then suddenly, like all the birds stopped singing and stuff like that. And we heard this horrible kind of growling coming from the bushes. And we all dropped from the tree and ran, convinced that we had experienced the Beast of Trowbridge. It was probably just a dog. But at the time, we were like, "This is the Beast of Trowbridge, run for your lives." And so we ran to my grandparents' garden and hid in their living room. And so growing up in like a very rural village, I mean, it's not rural anymore because they've kind of developed it, but with this kind of beast on the prowl was really quite scary as a kid. And I had nightmares, proper like nightmares throughout my childhood, well into my teens. And it was kind of when I was introduced to skepticism that I kind of then started to not care about the Beast of Trowbridge so much, but there was still some obsession with it. Kind of like in my teens, I mapped out all of the sightings of big cats in the southwest of England where I live, and I was really, really interested in what was being seen, because all sorts of people were seeing them.
I mean, there are because there are. I mean, big cats is an interesting topic, isn't it? Because it's one of those ones. I mean, I remember Simon Sherwood was interested in black dog phenomena. You remember this? And so the thing is that there could be cats out there, couldn't there?
Absolutely, yeah.
But then that, like, the thing you've seen, your experience was more psychological phenomena, maybe kind of a false memory type thing, that you've interpreted. And then other people maybe are seeing, again,
dogs.
Misinterpreting.
Are we talking about then? So the word in my head, Louie, is cryptozoology. Is this right? So what is cryptozoology, and is this the study of these kinds of experiences?
Yeah, pretty much. Cryptozoology is the study of strange animals, or rare animals and out of place animals and so on. And everything from big cats to extinct animal sightings to lake monsters fall under the label of cryptozoology. Now, the best placed people to study cryptozoology are those who are involved in, animal sciences and biology and so on. But you do find that involved in the field of cryptozoology are people who kind of are self-styled experts who probably might not have the training to deal with what they're handling and dealing with, which is mainly eyewitness testimony and some things that could be considered evidence, so like biological samples and stuff. But yeah, it's a little bit of a pseudoscience, I think.
So this is because now we're talking. I said I didn't watch ghost shows. Fucking love river monsters. where the guy goes look around the world looking for the mythical river beasts, and actually, because he is as kind of a skeptic, isn't he? And he looks at eyewitness testimony, and he looks at the locations, and then he generally identifies it as a, I mean, he very rarely says this is a mythical beast. It's usually
a dinosaur.
It's usually a massive catfish or some kind of prehistoric type fish.
Well, there is actually a very contemporary lake monster in England, in Windermere, and in 2012 I went to investigate it, and I interviewed a number of eyewitnesses and also people because Windermere is actually quite unique in that there are a dedicated team of people who study its ecology on a monthly basis. They do trapping and they study the fish population and so on. So we know from their data whether or not something large is in the lake and eating other fish and so on. And there is no evidence to suggest that's happening. But there is a chance that catfish have been introduced illegally to the lake by fishermen. And I went to they've got like a marine centre there, and they've actually got Wales catfish there, which are massive creatures. And one of the most interesting eyewitness testimonies from that whole monster case is a guy who was in a boat. They were in rowing boats. One of them was in a rowing boat, sorry, and the other one was swimming. And something went under the boat and swam past the guy in the water, and it was very large. And actually, what he described could be a Wales catfish, but the people who study the ecology and do the fish trapping and studying and so on, they've never encountered a Wales catfish in Windermere through all the time they've been doing it. So I think, again, this kind of goes back to it's kind of puzzle solving. So, you've got these pieces of the puzzle and you have to try and put them together to make the bigger picture. And
the Windermere one, then, Hayley. So what's the phenomenon you're trying to explain? Are people reporting seeing stuff in the kind of way we might think about people
Nessie.
Sightings of Nessie, and see that they go, well, there's something. So that's what we've got. So in Windermere, we have actually some testimony of people saying they've seen something that may be monster-like.
It's called Bow Nessie. Because they're really original in the naming, but yeah, it's reported to be something like the Loch Ness monster, but in Windermere.
Sure, people from the Lake District National Park who are going to
driving tourists.
We'll have to reveal them. I mean, this Scooby-Doo fashion again, saying, "Oh, actually," because often it was monsters, actually, wasn't it? Often presented as being apparitions. So.
I'm taking the other. I mean, is there something about water? And looking at water, because I mean, some of these observations, I think it's like in airplanes, and seeing UFOs and things, isn't there? There's something about these environments where people are absolutely goddamn certain that they couldn't possibly have seen something else, but actually they're fairly, difficult to. I mean, Venus is the great one, isn't it? Where and I watch Venus in the sky quite frequently, and it seems to follow you. And it's a weird one. And Venus is and people you say to people, oh, it was Venus, and they go, don't be fucking. I know the difference. But actually, I've had Venus follow me, and it can be a bit spooky.
Yeah, no, exactly. And there is one eyewitness testimony from Windermere where a couple are holidaying, and their hotel is right on the waterfront, and they go to their room and they look out on the lake and they see something. And they're like, oh, that's a weird looking boy, as in water boy, not a boy child. And then they go downstairs for a drink, and they're reading the paper, and in the paper they read that somebody else has seen a lake monster, and they say, oh, we must have seen the lake monster. But you've got a very vague description of what they've seen. And another piece of evidence is a photograph taken by a guy called, oh my God, Thomas Pickles, I think, which I always thought was the character from Rugrats, but apparently not. Apparently it's a real guy. And they're in a kayak, and he's seen these weird humps in the water and taken a photograph. But there's no real way of knowing how large those humps are. So people are saying, oh my God, it's like Nessie, it's a plesiosaur or something. But actually, it could just be otters, and there are otters, and they do swim near boats because tourists give them food, and they kind of do that kind of wavy diving thing. And so it's very the evidence is very unconvincing.
Another podcast where you spoke, and again I think some of it came around in the context of people making sense of unusual seeming phenomena and giving it meaning. So I'm thinking of the stuff where in EVP,
Oh yes.
and Winsper about some work on looking at people's experience of EVP. So in that context, we're saying how people will look for and see patterns in what is effectively randomness. So again, something we talk about. But here you're talking about, well, there are patterns. Absolutely, there are patterns. There's something happening in that water. There's something disturbing the water. There's something in the sky. It's then people's interpretation of, well, it can't be explained in some normal, mundane way. That there's a preference for what seems to be a more exotic, unusual, dare I say, even paranormal explanation. So it's something about people's wish to jump to something that it isn't really supported by what they're seeing. They're going, well, rather than how could it be explained normally? They're going, well, it must be a monster.
Yeah. And the interesting thing though about that particular monster is it kind of has a huge similarity to the Loch Ness monster case. But the Loch Ness monster case evolved over a number of decades and had pre-existing folklore stories that kind of form the basis of the idea that there was a monster, but Windermere, the Bow Nessie monster, doesn't really have that, and it's followed the pattern of the Loch Ness monster case, but in the space of only a few years. So somebody has already copyrighted the term Bow Nessie, and so I think it's very much a commercial thing down there. People have seen the pound signs. As soon as people started reporting seeing something strange, other people were seeing pound signs. And I think wherever you have a large body of water, people do see odd things. But in this case, it just happened to be in a tourist hotspot that was already in existence, and they've just seen maybe another avenue for income.
Pound signs, just I think as a kind of the last little story that you're going to share with us, you were telling us off camera, off air, about fake parapsychology PhDs, I believe, and as you know, I mean, my PhD was pretty much straight parapsychology. I mean, Matthew's wasn't more psychology, right? But we were doing Gansfeld stuff. I would say it was pretty straight parapsychology experiment.
We weren't aware then people. So what's this idea now that people can pay for a degree? At some level, you'd wonder, given that you can't really get a degree in parapsychology, people do PhDs in those areas. Now, so that you can actually get a fake one. Tell us more.
Yeah. Well, last year I was kind of aware of a guy called Steve Mera and his work, which it was kind of dodgy ghost evidence and dodgy psychic evidence. And so I'd kind of written about the work that he did with some other researchers on and off on an ad hoc basis. And then I discovered that there was a website called Stellar University, which I'd never heard of. And they were offering accredited kind of courses in paranormal research. But they looked at, it was kind of like the typical, EMF and EVP and ITC and all this stuff. And it just sounded like you could kind of do this course, learn how to do ghost hunting, and then say, oh, I'm a trained ghost hunter. But it was the claim that the courses were accredited that really interested me, and the claim that Steve Mera had a PhD. So I began digging into his credentials and found that he had gained his PhD from the Unifaculty of London Forensic Parapsychology Unit, which I couldn't find any information on, and it was only kind of through word of mouth from somebody else who had heard of them that I discovered it may have been a diploma mill. And they had other courses like diplomas in tarot reading and stuff like that, past life regression, future life progression, and things like that. So it wasn't really a trustworthy place to get a PhD from.
The question that pops into my mind is that if you're into these kind of things, do you care if the degree is fake or not? I mean, that seems like a contradiction in terms, doesn't it? In sense that, I mean, if you're researching past and future lives, does it matter if it's accredited to you?
I think it does when you are selling the course as, from a position of authority that you may not have. So I think of parapsychology researchers who, like yourselves have come, well, like you, Matthew, through psychology. And, you know, last year I spoke on a panel with Susan Blackmore, people like that. And so there are researchers who are legitimately where they are, you know, they're researching parapsychology through legitimate.
Just to clarify, I'm a psychologist too, by the way. You know.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, I just didn't.
Psychologist.
But so this chap was doing it from a way that probably, you know, I think he paid less than £1,000 for his PhD, and his alleged PhD, and on the website they had kind of a list of people who had contributed to the course, and I contacted some of them and they never heard of them, and yeah, it was, you know, quite alarming. And when I kind of properly started investigating it, they weren't really supposed to be using the word university, and so on. And then when I published a piece on my blog, and they took the whole website down. And but it's not the only case of that happening. You find that people can do these diplomas from the backs of magazines, and there are courses where they'll train you to be a paranormal investigator, but actually they're not really teaching you the proper skills required.
And so basically, you mean you're trying to stop people being conned?
Well, when I was highlighting this one, it was just more and more questions started to come forward about the claims being made, like that it was an accredited course, but actually it was accredited by other organizations this chap had set up, which themselves were not really properly established organizations to be accrediting a course. So it was just layers upon layers of dodginess, and and when they took it down, the whole website down, that got me interested in other kind of diplomas that people were claiming to have, and it turned out that some of them were just out the backs of magazines. And there is an organization called ASAP, which is the Association for the Scientific Study of Anomalous Phenomena, and they do training courses for their investigators. And so a lot of ghost hunters now say, I'm an ASAP accredited investigator, or an AAI. But when you ask members of the public what an AAI is in the context of the paranormal research field, none of them really know. So only people who've done the course know what an AAI is. So there's no real safeguard for the public. So you can say, so a ghost hunter can say, oh yes, I'm an accredited investigator and I've done this training. But there's no way that for someone who's got an allegedly haunted house to say, oh, they're using EVP, which is unscientific. So, you know, they can't be accredited. When they do use bad techniques and make dodgy claims, they're doing it under the banner of someone who's an accredited investigator. So it kind of has that appeal to authority. And yeah, I think there's just kind of there's scope for danger there, really.
And it's worth pointing out, and so I was trying to have a look to see some of these online things, but you mentioned the one you were investigating, exploring, seems to have gone down. But
that was me.
Given that we are talking about kind of the general area of parapsychology, then as a resource, the Parapsychological Association website, I think, is a good one to point people to, because
it is, yeah.
They do have a page on there talking about university education around the world. There aren't that many places, but there are a number of places, a number in the UK, a number in Europe and the US and so on, where people can choose to do studying, and even some online courses where people an introduction to this stuff. Just get the sense of how one does investigate these things in a so-called more academic or scientific way, and recognizing there are different opinions here. And I think what you're tapping into there is that shows like Most Haunted and Ghost Hunters and other ones have really stimulated this general lay interest in wanting to investigate this stuff for themselves, absolutely, but it's going to generate people who really aren't very well prepared to do it, don't have the necessary skills, background. So there's always that danger involved with it, I think. So I think well done for keeping going with it, though I'd be the kind of person thinking, I'm not sure how motivated I could be to say to people, if I don't think there's anything in it myself, I won't spend any more time.
Well, I mean, this is it, isn't it? The wave of bullshit's never going to stop.
No.
So I mean, you cut the head off one, and 2 or 3 or 4 replace it, and in some ways, you're fighting a losing battle, aren't you? But is it worth? I mean, I think it's worth doing, even if you're never going to, bring rationality to the masses.
No, I mean, and I mean, if somebody reads my blog, and it's been going since like 2007, so there's so much on there that, you know, if you are a believer who has lost their belief and you're questioning it, you can probably find something on my blog that kind of helps answer a question. And I think the reason that I personally continue is because I do find it interesting, and as technology develops, the ways in which people fake stuff develops, and the way in which psychics can fake stuff develops. So now someone can just go on your Facebook page and find everything they need to about you without even being your friend, and then you're sat in the audience and they can relay it to you. And so I think it's really important that there are rational voices, and but also I think the more that you kind of study the paranormal experiences people have, the more you can learn about the way in which people perceive stuff around them. But also, yeah, it's just fun to solve puzzles, I think.
Absolutely. So as a reminder then, so the blog is at haleyisaghost.co.uk.
That's right, yeah.
Great. And we can point, and I'm just reading on there now, even, but the stone tape projector. It is
God, yeah.
Again, we come across more and more of these things I didn't even realise were out there.
That's Derek Acora. Yeah, Derek Acora did a show with the stone tape projector where they plug like an item into a projector and it projects the ghosts out. Yeah.
All right, this sounds absolute rubbish. Yes. I quit parapsychology a long time ago because partly because of stuff like this. But should we say thank you, Haley, for joining us? Anyway, it was wonderful talking to you, and I'm sure you've whetted a few of our one listener's appetite.
Yes, absolutely.
to visit your blog and send you hate mail, probably.
Okay, that's fine. Bring it.
Yeah.
And I say we'll continue to read haleyisaghost.co.uk, and our listener can be pointed there for more information. Thank you, Haley.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.